Okay, back here with you on the Rich Van Tassel channel, giving you the Western Conference breakdown for the 2015-2016 NBA season. We're going to start with the same team that was at the top spot last year in the West. That's the Golden State Warriors. I don't think they'll get to 67 wins. I do project them to be a 60-win team. That could, those numbers could drop a little bit below the 60-win mark if this team gets complacent. But I'm not expecting that. I think that Steph Curry is going to have another spectacular year. Certainly be in the running for MVP consideration, though I don't think he'll get it, and I think there'll be other guys above him. I'll just have another very good season this year. But I think teams will be more focused on shutting him down. They're going to look to take away his dribble and probably crowd him off the pick and rolls and just not really give him airspace. So look for Klay Thompson and the Draymond Greens of the world to have big seasons this year. Defensively was really the most underrated part of this team last year. Klay Thompson, a very good defender on the outside, can mark guys up. Draymond Green, while he's a bit undersized on the inside, can certainly bang and holds his own underneath. And Andrew Bogut, when on the court, is certainly a defensive presence and a rim protector. So that's where I have Golden State again. We probably put them right around about 62 wins this season. Somewhere around there. Again, though, it could be a drop off if they get complacent. And then, again, it's a long NBA season, so you never know how teams are going to approach it, how focused they're going to be for the regular season as well. Up next, I like the San Antonio Spurs. I like the addition of LaMarcus Aldridge. I think the Spurs are going to be also right around 60 wins, but this is also another team. You just don't know what they're going to do throughout the regular season. They like to rest their guys, obviously, Tim Duncan and Tony Parkers. They approach the season, though, and they know which games they're going to take off and, put them right around about 68 to 70 games in that regard. So they already plan that out before the season starts. They look over the schedule and know where the best times are, avoid back-to-backs, things like that, when the best times to take breaks are for these guys. So the addition of LaMarcus Aldridge is not a guy who's going to need his minutes monitored. He's going to really be a nice addition, and he's going to keep this team competitive on a nightly basis. And that's why I have them in the 60 win mark, because I think that with LaMarcus Aldridge, you're going to see them playing a higher quality game every night. Where in the past there would be nights where they just didn't bring it, and you can't blame them. They had a lot of veteran guys. That won't be the case this year, along with Kawhi Leonard as well. We'll continue to look to ascend his way into prominence. He should be in discussion for Defensive Player of the Year again. He's a very good player. I'd like to see his offensive game improve just a bit, especially a more developed post-up game for a guy of his size. He could do it, so that would certainly help. But with LaMarcus Aldridge on this team, you really got to expect the big things from the Spurs this year. And it wouldn't surprise me if this team makes a run at 70 wins with the talent they have. Again, I'm not projecting that because I just think they'll take too many nights off. But certainly, it's a team that could possibly do it when you look at the talent and the coaching they have on this team. So again, that will remain to be seen. Though I'm not expecting it. Don't quote me on saying the Spurs will win 70 because I have them around 60 wins. But that's what I would expect from them this year. You also have the Patty Mills off the bench and Danny Green's off the bench as well. Matt Bonner, they like to spread the floor, so they're a deep team as well. So really look for the Spurs to have a very good year this year. And again, 70 wins. Don't quote me on it, but just don't be surprised if they get rolling and there's enough talent on this team to be in the 65 to 71 category. But that'll remain to be seen. All right, next up, I have the Houston Rockets. This will be the third place team, and I'd like them to finish around 57 to 58 wins. I think that James Harden is going to be a serious MVP candidate. We discussed it in the player rankings, how good he is, how tough he is to defend on the outside. He can also drive and get to the rim. He's a great ball handler. He loves that crossover dribble. I think Ty Lawson is really going to help as well. It's going to take pressure off James Harden. It's going to allow him to not have to do so much ball handling, which I think will be very advantageous to his game. Dwight Howard, if he's healthy, I'm expecting a big season from him. I expect a lot of lobs with Ty Lawson and James Harden. They're going to be able to break guys down on the outside and get to the rim. That's going to draw defenders who are marking Dwight Howard up to the driving guards, allowing for a lot of lobs where Dwight Howard will get easy hoops. Again, his free throw shooting has got to be better. You do have a strong bench as well with the Corey Brewers, who had a very good season last year. Kevin McHale had talked about how he was one of the more important players in the league, or excuse me, one of the more important players to his team in the league. So we'll see if he can continue to solidify the bench for them, and that'll be a nice addition. Patrick Beverly is going to be healthy this year. Well, he's going to now be coming off the bench with Ty Lawson. Maybe they'll go to a three-guard lineup with Beverly, Lawson, and James Harden. James Harden is 6'5", so you could possibly get away with that, and I expect to see that at some points. And you also have Jason Terry and Marcus Thornton off the bench, two guys who can really score. Jason Terry is more of a spot-up shooter at his age. Marcus Thornton is a guy who's hot and cold, but when hot, he can be very effective. So that's why I have Houston at about the 57 to 58 win mark, and I'm really liking James Harden to be in the MVP candidacy. Again, we'll discuss that in player previews. We'll give you, or excuse me, in the postseason award editions, we'll give you a breakdown of all that as well. So, and just another note, we'll do this right now. Actually, no, I'll let you know when we get to the player awards, the postseason awards. I'll fill you in on something we're going to do there. So just wait for that. That's the third place team, the Houston Rockets. Fourth place, the Memphis Grizzlies. I have them right about where they were last year, around 55, 56 wins. It's now or never time for the Grizzlies. They're certainly a professional team. They've done just about everything but make the finals and win a finals, obviously. Again, they run a very team-style offense. That's how they get their points. They run as a collective unit, a machine. Mike Conley and the pick and roll with Marc Gasol, that's really their bread and butter, and Zach Randolph post. Jeff Green is going to have to continue to be a wing scorer. That's really what they're going to need in order to really compete at the highest level. Tony Allen, when he's on the floor, he's a great defender, but we saw come playoff time where he can be exposed, where teams will just not even bother to defend him, and they'll be basically playing 4-on-5 on the offensive end. So that's going to be a big issue, but that comes down to the playoffs. Matt Barnes, in addition, Vince Carter, what can they do? Vince Carter, still can put up points, but it's more of a hit and miss now at his stage in his career. Matt Barnes has never been the consistent guy I would like to see in this league, but they did make those additions. So you do have Beno Udrih as a backup point guard. He is solid when he's in the game. They have solid talent. There's nothing wrong with the Grizzly team. It's just, is it enough? And do they have that one focus guy who can get all the points when needed? They usually go to Mike Conley or Marc Gasol in the pick and roll game when they absolutely need a hoop. But sometimes you really need that one-on-one guy to get the job done. So we'll see what happens with the Grizzlies this year. It's basically now or never time. This team has accomplished a lot. They've been to the second round of the playoffs. They've been to the conference finals. They've lost in the first round. They've played tough series against teams. They've advanced in multiple seasons over the past few years. So it's, again, to use the term one more time, it's just time for them. It's either going to happen or it's not for the Grizzlies. I like the way they do things. I like the way they're coached. Again, I'm just not sure if they have enough to get the job done this year, though. And that was the fourth place team, the Grizzlies. The fifth place team would be the Los Angeles Clippers. They're going to look to knock a bad taste out of their mouth the way last season ended, where they blew the 3-1 lead to the Houston Rockets in the conference semifinals. The addition of Paul Pierce, he's going to be the veteran leadership to prevent things like that from happening. He'll obviously take big shots. Don't look for him to play many games this year, like he did last year with Washington. They're going to look to rest him for the playoffs. That's where his money's going to be made. As he liked to say, when he was in Brooklyn and when he was in Washington, in the playoff games, he'd make big shots and say, "This is why I'm here." You could read his lips saying that. We'd certainly agree. Chris Paul, going to have to continue to distribute to those guys, get DeAndre Jordan involved. DeAndre Jordan does not have much of an offensive game on his own. He relies on the lobs. He relies on penetration. So he's going to have to either improve that, and certainly an improved free throw shooting would help. Blake Griffin continues to play very well, so I expect him to be right up there again as one of the better players in this league. The bench the addition of Josh Smith, he is very erratic at times, but we saw what he can do in Houston. Certainly, he's much better as a bench player than he is as a starter because he has the tendency to take bad shots. But he's certainly a nice addition, along with J.J. Redick off the bench, who's been a very good bench player throughout his entire career. Has really found the bench doing that. Austin Rivers, um, not really ever lived up to the billing since coming out of college, but he is also a nice addition. Well, a nice player on the bench. He's been on that team. So that's the Clippers. We have them right around the 54, 55 one as well. It's a very competitive Western Conference, but that's the fifth place team there in the league. Really, the question with this team is, are they finally going to put it all together and win games? That's why they got a guy like Paul Pierce. I would expect if Minnesota falls out of the running, you might see them try to trade for Kevin Garnett. Again, though, that's you know something far off and away. I don't know if Garnett wants to be traded again, but certainly he knows Paul Pierce. He knows Doc Rivers. So if they feel that team needs something in that regard, they will do it. But they're probably just hoping that Paul Pierce will be enough to give this team the leadership they need come crunch time. In sixth place, I like the New Orleans Hornets. Again, continuing to improve. Anthony Davis is certainly spectacular. He should be in the Defensive Player of the Year and the MVP consideration this season. Making small strides. They got the 8th spot in the playoffs last year, so continuing to move up just a bit. Still think there's not enough pieces around Anthony Davis to help. They got rid of Monty Williams, hired Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry has been a quality coach in this league. He just won a ring with the Golden State Warriors as their assistant coach, was certainly the head coach when Steve Kerr was the general manager in Phoenix, a guy who's won games. And been to conference finals as a head coach as well. So he's a quality coach. They're not, really downgrading. They're bringing in a good guy. Tyreke Evans, we discussed in the top 50 players breakdowns. He's found a home. He's been underrated his entire career, and I think he's going to continue to impress. I like Norris Cole off the bench. I've always liked him when he played in Miami. He's a very good player. They also got Nate Robinson now, who was with Chicago a couple of years ago. Nate Robinson is very explosive and can give you points off the bench with the best of them. Like Isaiah Thomas, they both went to Washington, two, shorter guys, 5'9", both of them, but they certainly know how to score, and they can only really play off the bench because they're defensive liabilities, but it's certainly a nice addition to any team. Jrue Holiday as well, coming back, making sure he's completely healthy this year, as well as Eric Gordon, who's never really lived up since coming over as the main piece in that Chris Paul deal a few years ago, back when they were still the Hornets, the Pelicans were. And as well, Ryan Anderson, a most improved player a few years ago, a guy who can shoot from the outside. That's what New Orleans might look to do this year, in the Dwight Howard mold a few years ago when he was with Orlando. And of course, Ryan Anderson was in Orlando. You spread them out with shooters. You let them work underneath. If they double and collapse, you kick it out. And that can be a very effective way to go. Orlando took that all the way to a finals one year, so it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that this team could surprise and move up the ranks as well. I have them at 52, 53, somewhere in that regard as far as the wins, but certainly a team that might be able to make some noise if everything gets clicking and they start knocking down shots from the outside. It's really not beyond the realm of possibility, so be sure to look for what New Orleans can do this year. And again, we said Anthony Davis in the discussion for both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award. They were the number 6 seed. The number 7 seed, the Portland Trailblazers. I think that the loss of LaMarcus Aldridge is really going to hurt. Again, they only won 51 games last year. They really feasted on that weak Northwest Division. I'm liking them probably to downgrade a little bit in the 49 to 50 win range in that regard, maybe even a little less. We know Damian Lillard is very good, but LaMarcus Aldridge, is also very good, and they're devoid of him now for this season. So they have to drop back. I don't see how they really can continue to keep that pace of a 50-win team without a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge. I like Myers Leonard, a big guy. He's 7'1". Very athletic, so we'll see what role he can fill in replacing Aldridge. Again, not much of a back-to-back player like Aldridge is, back to the basket, when in the post. So that's something he'll have to develop. He's more of a rim protector and a finisher, and he likes playing in the pick and roll. I see. Yeah, I mean, I'm just really not seeing much with this team. I mean, Chris Kaman been in the league a while, but he's not gonna solidify that role for them. So it's gonna be a lot of Damian Lillard. He's got to have a lot on his shoulders, and don't be surprised if this team maybe even slips out of the playoffs. I don't see that. I think Lillard's good enough. No Nick Batum anymore either. They're a big time shooter from the outside. So they've lost a lot, and it wouldn't even surprise me if this team doesn't make the playoffs. So here we go. At number 7, again, probably about 48 to 50 win range for the Portland Trailblazers, possibly even a little less, and we'll see how serious it is without LaMarcus Aldridge if they downslide even more going into this season. The 8th place team, going to be my surprise prediction this year. I'm going to say that the Sacramento Kings finally turn it around, get it together and make the playoffs. I have them right around 45, 46 wins. And I like the addition of Rajon Rondo. I think he's out to prove that he is still one of the top players in this league. Again, we discussed it when we were breaking down the 50 best players, how good he was playing at the end of the 2012 season when that Boston Celtics team was making a run at the finals. Certainly could have been an MVP consideration that year. He then had the injury. The team started to rebuild. They traded him. Whatever went down in Dallas last year was a problem. But he's certainly going to want to prove himself this year. Now, Sacramento struggled to win 30 games over the past 10 years, basically since they had that run where they were such a good team but could never get over the Lakers. It's really been a struggle for them. What is DeMarcus Cousins going to do? Is him and George Karl going to get along? George Karl is a fantastic coach. DeMarcus Cousins is a headstrong guy. DeMarcus Cousins is also a sensational player underneath. He's an animal. He'll just do what he wants. He can knock down outside shots. He can rim protect. He can rebound with the best of them. DeMarcus Cousins is a sensational player. And if this team really surprises teams, or surprises the league, that is, and he takes them to the playoffs, you would have to consider him for MVP consideration. Rudy Gay has always been a quality scorer in this league. He put up over 20 points last year. He's a good outside guy. He can certainly defend when he's focused. He's not the best defender, but he will accept a defensive challenge when necessary. Ben McLemore, now coming into what I believe is his 3rd year now, he's going to have to continue to improve, but there certainly is talent there on this team. And again, we discussed George Karl, how good of a coach he is. Caron Butler, a veteran presence. Willie Cauley-Stein, their top overall pick. They're going to team him with DeMarcus Cousins. So a lot of talent on this team, and that's why I'm picking them. I'm liking Sacramento to be, again, 45, 46 wins in that regard. But that's my surprise pick for this year. The Sacramento Kings being the 8th place team out in the West. The 9th place team, I think they're going to miss the playoffs, and I think this might be the beginning of the end for them. And that would be the Dallas Mavericks. I'm liking them at about 42, 43 wins, just a little above the 500 mark. Obviously, it begins and ends with Dirk Nowitzki on this team. He still is a very good player. He still gets the job done, still commands a lot of respect from other teams on the defensive side of the ball as far as game planning for him. He can knock down the outside shots. He can get to the free throw line. When he's behind the arc, he's lethal. So there's nothing wrong with Dirk Nowitzki in that regard. Again, the problem is I think that this has to end at some point. They've basically hovered or stayed competitive as a veteran team, bringing in a lot of guys, veteran players, and not really building any foundation. So certainly the potential to one thing goes wrong, one brick so to speak is taken out, things can go awry. Chandler Parsons is a guy I like. I think he's going to have to really pick up his game if this team is going to want to make some noise. Wesley Matthews is a nice addition as well. He'll play shooting guard. We'll see how he is coming off of that Achilles injury. JaVale McGee, a very inconsistent center. He's going to look to replace Tyson Chandler. I take Tyson Chandler all the time over JaVale McGee. And I'm not too down on JaVale McGee. A lot of people are in the league. I like him, but he's very inconsistent, and he's just not Tyson Chandler. Raymond Felton, who's going to solidify the point guard spot? Is it going to be him? Is it going to be JJ Barea, who won a ring with that team? Rick Carlisle's a fine coach. He's going to have this team competitive, but they got to come back, and that's why someone who made the playoffs last year has to miss if I'm going to put Sacramento in. So that's why I'm taking Dallas out. I'd like, again, as the ninth place team, right around 42, 43 wins in that regard. Up next, another team that is a bit of a surprise, but this is right around where they finished last year. So, and that's the Utah Jazz. Were very competitive under Quinn Snyder. They had won, I believe it was 40 games last year, so if they were playing in the East, they would have made the 7th spot where the Celtics were. Playing in the West, that's good enough for, what was it, 10? 11, excuse me. They only won 38 games last year, but that would have gotten them in the playoffs in the East. In the West, it does not. I'm pegging them around 39, probably 40 wins, maybe even 500 again. I like Gordon Hayward a lot. He's a guy who's developed himself in this league. Again, we discussed this in the top 50 players. He's improved his points per game total throughout his career. Dante Exum, the big time, well, not big time, but the second year guy, he's very big. Excuse me, he was a point guard, but he's about 6'6". They may move him to shooting guard. I like his improvement as being a major contributing factor to where this team goes this year. Trey Burke as well, a good player they're going to need to continue to improve. But other than that, other than those three guys, you're really devoid of talent at a lot of other positions. So that's why I don't think they'll be able to make the playoffs. I think there's certainly a lot there that helps this team, and the guys like Exum, like Hayward, on winning teams that have more depth. There certainly could be quality players on teams such as those. But with this team, with the lack of depth, I don't see them being able to make the playoffs, and that's how I have them a little below the 500 mark coming into this year. The number 10th team, I'm sure most of you are wondering, or excuse me, the 11th team, I'm sure most of you are wondering why they haven't been called yet. It's because I think Kevin Durant is going to get traded. So this is a bit of a caveat on this. I don't know how it's going to work. I hate it in the NBA. It's one of the things that really despises me, is that players get traded, players of a caliber such as Kevin Durant. We saw with Dwight Howard. I actually wrote an article about this a few years ago. It's not something I like, but it is just a way of the game. And I think that no matter how you try to convince guys, this is a team that has potential to possibly win a championship. They would rather trade a guy for, let's be realistic, you never get anywhere close to equal value in that regard when you trade a guy like a Kevin Durant, like a Dwight Howard. I mean, look at Orlando, look at New Orleans. They're just now coming back, and they had to get a number 1 pick after they traded Chris Paul. Orlando has been terrible since trading Dwight Howard. So that's the caveat on this one. If they play together, I expect Oklahoma City to be in the 55 win range. But general managers get Smart's disease, and they think that they're so brilliant, and they end up trading these guys. So that's why I have Oklahoma City as the 11th seed, and I think they're going to be around 32, 33, 34 wins, maybe even a little more. It's really tough to peg with this team. I should just put an asterisk next to them and say they're just a if team, because you don't know. Russell Westbrook is sensational. Kevin Durant, obviously on the court, he's also sensational as well. So I can't give you any much of a detailed analysis of this team. When healthy, with Kevin Durant, with Russell Westbrook, the bench that they have, healthy, whole, not trading guys, they're as good as anyone in the West. But for some reason, I think Kevin Durant is going to get traded. So we have that at 11th. Again, you have my, disclaimer with that one. We'll see what happens, what develops in the season. If they get off to a poor start, they have Billy Donovan as the head coach. So I don't know. I'm sorry I can't give you more with that team. It's just very difficult to know where they're going to go this year. But that's putting them at the 11th spot. Probably, let's say 35 wins for that team. The 12th, the Phoenix Suns, a team that phased off at the end of last year. This team, I'm about 34 wins. They no longer have Goran Dragic that's going to hurt them. Eric Bledsoe, I don't think has ever lived up to his potential in the league. Brandon Knight, now what I believe is his third year, or could be even be his fourth, might only even be his second. Brandon Knight from Kentucky a few years ago, point guard, is probably their best player. Markieff Morris up front is a bit undersized, and he hasn't lived up to it since coming into the league. Guy who puts up 15 points, but not really that many rebounds. So I would need more from him in that regard. Like we said, though, without Goran Dragic on this team, they folded towards the end of last year, and I'm expecting them to continue a downward slide. This is a team that probably looks to tank. Tanking is something I don't like, but we're not going to go into that. Just tanking is ridiculous, but I think this team may be looking to tank. That's just the impression I get from them. So that was the 12th place team, the Phoenix Suns. 13th, the Lakers. I don't think they can do anything but improve, considering how terrible they were last year. I expect a healthy Kobe Bryant. I expect him to put up a lot of points this year. A lot of talk about him being done. He might try to even average 40 this year. I'm not saying he's going to average 40, but I think Kobe might even try to average 40 this year. But look for his average to be up as well. He's going to come back. He's going to be a very good player again. The addition of Roy Hibbert, who knows what went down last year. He just really was off last year. We'll see if he can respond now that he is in LA. D'Angelo Russell, their top pick, the second overall pick. He's gonna, how much is he gonna be able to learn? How many shots is he gonna get without Kobe? I like the addition of Brandon Bass. I think he's always been a quality pro in this league. They brought back Metta World Peace. Don't know what he has at this stage of his career. And Nick Young. I mean, a lot of individually good guys, but altogether, I don't see much from this team. They can't be as bad as last year with a healthy Kobe Bryant, but is Kobe going to get traded? I don't know. I don't think they'd ever trade him, but we'll see what remains to be seen with that. But I'm looking the Lakers right around 30 wins this year. Not much. And that is number 12, the Los Angeles Lakers. Just 1 second. I want to make sure I'm still on the right count. Number 13, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Little asterisk with this team. I see potential here. I don't think it's going to happen, but I certainly like the talent they have with the Andrew Wiggins, with the top overall pick of Karl Anthony Towns. Kevin Garnett, I think, is going to bring some nice leadership to that team. Ricky Rubio, can he stay healthy? Zach LaVine, an explosive outside player. So it's going to be interesting to see this team. I'm putting them right around about 28 wins. Well, I could see something breaking right with this team and being in playoff contention. Kevin Garnett has made it clear that's what he expects of this team. I don't think he would have come back to play if not. Kevin Garnett does not need the money, and he really doesn't need to prove anything. So I think he is interested to see what this team can do. But I don't see it with this team. I love Kevin Garnett. I like Ricky Rubio, and I think there's talent here. Well, I'm putting them at about 28 wins, right around where the Lakers are going to be. I just don't see it happening with this team this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if it does. So, well, that's a bit of a contradictory statement I just made, but just pay attention to the Timberwolves. We'll see how it goes. Injuries will certainly play a role, but Kevin Garnett's leadership is going to be very important to what happens to that team. Excuse me, that was 14th, so we are at our last place team. And that would be the Denver Nuggets. The departure of Ty Lawson is clearly going to be devastating to this team. They really don't have anything when you look at their roster. Kenneth Faried is their best player, a guy I like, New Jersey native, so obviously I got to give him some props there. But outside of that, I just don't see anything with this team. J.J. Hickson, I mean, I remember when he was regarded well in Cleveland, but I didn't even know he was still in the league, to be honest with you, until I just saw it. Danilo Gallinari is a solid player, but this team is just too devoid of talent. I think they're going to be in the 25 win range, and it wouldn't even surprise me if they go into the tank rank as well. But that's what it is. You get teams that are bad and they like to tank in the NBA. It's something I don't like to see. I think there needs to be something done that would do away with it. I like just giving every team that misses the playoffs the same equal shot at the top overall pick. I think that would do away with it. Frankly, tanking just surprises me because you're not even guaranteed the top pick. It's not the NFL where you're guaranteed it. You're only a 25% chance, but that's neither here nor there. Don't expect much from the Nuggets this season. I think that Gallinari will have a high PPG, total points per game, because there's no one else. But outside of that, nothing to really look forward to with this team. I'm gonna put them right around, again, 25 wins, as we said. All right, so that's the Western Conference breakdown. Be sure to stay tuned. In just a few minutes, we're going to be posting the video for the playoff predictions and postseason awards. So we'll give you that in just a second, and thanks for watching.